Hello, welcome to the Internet Chess Club. This is Grandmaster Miguel Illescas. We are going to check what happened in the last two rounds of the Candidates chess tournament, which finished yesterday in Madrid. As you probably know, we have a candidate, the Russian player Yang Nepomniachtchi, dominated the tournament from the beginning till the very end. In round 13, he only needed a draw to make clear first, and that's why his game with white against Richard Rapport was a bit boring. Rapport, he played very brave. He tried the Sicilian defense and this rouser variation, but very soon Nepo, he showed that he knew well how to kill all possibilities for a fight. After bishop f4, black is kind of forced to play d5, and here you can see what's going to happen. I mean, all pieces are going to be traded on d5, but Nepo, he played first queen e1, which is probably the best move, and now black went for this line, which offers white the possibility to kill the game completely with bishop e5. In the game, this was what happened. Nepo was very happy to put the game for a draw. Okay, they finished few moves later, drawing this completely equal position. So with this draw, Nepo was out of the reach of the rest of the field, and the main attraction was now the fight for the second place, because you know that if Magnus Carlsen would decide not to play against Nepo, then we would have a World Championship final match between Nepomniachtchi and the second of the field. So some games were quite important. One of them was Firouzja Dingliren. The French player went in a very safe four knights variation, going for an endgame. Liren didn't really have a chance. It was a draw after 42 moves in a completely equal game. Another game which was important was Radyavov-Caruana, but again here white went for a very solid line. He got a pawn, but black compensation is very clear, and the game was a draw just after 31 moves. So we go for the most important and interesting game of the round 13, which was Nakamura Duda. The American player, he had a chance, he had to win if he wanted to fight for this second place. And well, the game was not disappointing anybody. It was a very interesting Sicilian fight. We will check this game full. It was a very good battle between these two players. In this line, Duda played this fashionable move h6. It's difficult to explain why this move is good. Of course, it controls g5, but the point is that after bishop e6, usually white plays g4. This is one fashionable line, and if black plays h6, then g5 is following, and it's, well, I mean, a bit annoying for black. So another idea, of course, is just to play castle in the old orthodox model, but after h3 in this game he plays h6, and I believe the idea is if white goes g4, then black will not play bishop e6. He can play knight bd7, he can play knight c6, or even he can try something like b5 with the idea to place the bishop on b7. So after h6, Naka went bishop c4, and I think he was well prepared in this line because he played here a novelty, knight h4. There was a game, at least in my database, with knight d5, which is a very typical move. But knight h4, it is interesting because the knight is heading for the main weaknesses on black's position, f5 or g6, and you may wonder why g6, because white is gonna take on e6 after knight a5. It is a very provocative move. White is kind of forced to take, and then I think it's a good idea knight g6, which Nakamura played. Now black is going to lose the chance to castle, and after knight c4, bishop c1, I think white is better here because I don't really see what black got to lose his castle. It's clear he has a nice center. I mean, white is not happy to take on e6 in most of the lines, But here, in my opinion, white has a simple plan to play b3, something like queen d3, and if king f7, we are going to take on e7, bishop b2, bishop a3, rook d1, and one day maybe f4. I think white is better. I don't know how much better, but the point is that Naka, he found another interesting idea, much more risky, much more committal, h4. He wants to keep his knight on g6. In the game, he succeeded. I'm not so sure it was so strong. I mean, I think black could go immediately for king f7 and rook e8, trying to hide the king on g8. And I'm not so sure that the pawn on h5 is so strong, because it will need permanent protection from the rest of, from the queen or some other pieces. So it's a double-edged position. But in the game, Duda played rook c6, a move which I don't quite understand. I mean, for me, it is an ugly move. The rook is badly placed on c6. I have the feeling he wanted to play queen c7 and make a lot of pressure on the c file, but he could do it with the rook on c8 and the queen on c7, and it was perfectly fine. Now Naka played very natural on the king side, and I like this move, nice move, knight d1, his idea b3, knight e3. After a few moves, I have the feeling that white got a nice position. Black is kind of forced to play something like knight f8, trying to get rid of this very annoying knight. And here, in my opinion, there was a simple way to play, but again, Nakamura, he avoided. He went for the more complicated like knight h4. In my opinion, knight e7 was good enough, if queen e7, b4. And if black plays like in the game, trying to grab the pawn on e4, then white can immediately make use of the fact that the king is on f7, and the compensation for the pawn is going to be huge. For example, after knight c4 and bishop b2, I have the feeling that white is already better. We can see here that the rook on c6 is a bit misplaced. So after b4, probably black can hold the position with knight 8 d7. Now the knight on g6 is gone, so black can come back with his knight, maybe play rook c8 and king g8, and maybe white is only slightly better. In the game, it was knight h4, very sharp move by Naka, keeping the knight on the board, but he's going to lose a pawn after knight h7 and knight g5. Probably he calculated this pawn sacrifice. Black gets a very important pawn, but white gets, of course, compensation with a strong knight on g6 and a good bishop, and black pieces are a bit awkwardly placed. After a few moves, the position became dynamically equal, in my opinion. I mean, black is pawn up, white has some compensation with the knight on g6, and the rest of his pieces well placed. But here I think some energetical play was needed. Something like f4 made some sense, in my opinion. Trying to open the diagonal and the file, but Naka went for a slow plan, rook fd1, and I'm not so sure he can really play so slow with a clear pawn down. After rook d3, Duda reacted with a very good move, b5. Now white cannot take because rook c2 would be very strong. And here Naka went for bishop a3, and we reach, in my opinion, one of the most critical moments in the game. I may ask, what would you play here with the black pieces? Do you want to see the position from the black perspective? Black to play, what to do? Okay, you had some time to think about it. The move which Duda played, I mean, for me, it's crazy. I mean, I cannot play chess like this anymore. Maybe when I was very young. But here, black is a pawn up, and I had the feeling that this move b4 was so natural, just driving the bishop away from the attack on d6. And after bishop b2, we can continue with something like knight c5. Of course, there is some compensation after rook g3, but I don't see any real threats, to be honest. I mean, this looks to me completely fine for black. But also, we can try something sharper like e4. And if queen e4, we have knight c5. So really difficult for me. I mean, rook e4, and if rook g3, then we have bishop f6, or we have d5. Okay, and now it makes more sense, because if pawn takes d5, we have rook c2, or we can even take. And the position is unclear, but black seems to be very alright, especially in this simple line. I mean, after knight c5, and I think the position is completely alright for black. Instead, we got the move d5. This is a crazy move from Duda, and all his problems will start here. I mean, white played the simple c takes d5, rook c2, and here a lot of moves were possible, because queen f3, queen e1, every move was d6 was possible, but Naka went bishop d6. Still, black has some normal play here. I mean, black is not worst. I have the feeling that, for example, e takes d5 was possible, take, and to go for something like this, probably white is better, but not so much better. The knight is a bit trapped, and now the bishop is hanging, and after some sequence like this, white is better, but this could probably be a draw with good play. But the move which Duda played is also fine, knight c5, attacking the rook. Naka reacted very natural way, d6, sacrifice and exchange for a monster pawn, and here black was forced to take. Even if white takes or plays even d7, I think there is compensation for the sacrifice, but not more. I mean, if d8 check, take, and well, I mean, it's completely unclear, the position. Of course, white has two very nice pieces, but black is running with his pawn. He has one rook for two pieces. The position probably equal. Also, white could try something like bishop e5. Maybe Duda was maybe scared of these ideas, but with precise defense, black can hold, and he can claim even to be better here. So knight d7 was played, which is a bad mistake, because now black is going to get very passive, and well, I mean, the pawn on d6 is incredibly strong. We can see that now got black double pawns just for nothing. I mean, we have a 4 versus 3 for black on the king side, but they are completely useless because this double pawn. So now, well, I mean, rook d8 was a better try for the defense. He went bishop d8, and very soon he's going to be dead lost. Naka played very well. Here, of course, rook f2 was needed, but white has a very strong answer. Rook c7. This is a very good move, and white is always better in these lines. I'm showing some sample lines where white finally is with a piece up and a completely winning endgame. This, okay, I mean, black cannot survive because the b pawn is going to win the game. In the game, Duda played king h7, and now he's simply left with a miserable position. Naka slowly improved his position. He tried to trade these bishops, and finally black is completely tight. Here, well, I mean, white wants to take on e5, but of course to do it immediately is a bad mistake, because bishop f4 check. So Naka went king h3, prophylactic move, and black is really completely lost. I mean, it's equal material, but white wants to take on e5, and if something like bishop b6, simply take knight e5. It's a clear pawn up. Then Duda tried to complicate the game with b4, but this only helped white to finish the game a bit faster. I mean, rook b3, and now rook c8. The point is that rook h8 is made, so black has to come back, and now this simple, elegant idea, d7. And if black takes, then take, check, and a piece up, as usual in all these lines. In fact, after move 49, it was already too late to defend. If not rook b3, if something like bishop b6, white can also win here very easy, something like this, and bishop h4. Okay, so this was a suicidal game from Duda. Nakamura played very well, and he got a very important point which put him on the second position with only one round to go. So we reached the last round 14. The most important game was no doubt Liren Nakamura. Liren was half a point behind. Draw was enough for Naka to keep a clear second place. But something very strange happened in that game. But first, let's check briefly what happened in the rest of the games. Duda and Nepo was a very interesting game. Finally, it was a draw. Nepo played very sharp. Both tried to win, but finally they reached some endgame where the normal result was a draw. And this is what happened a few moves later, on move 48 to be precise. So very good tournament for Nepo, undefeated, and just a bad result for Jan-Krzysztof Duda, but a good experience probably for the Polish player. Another draw was, another game not decisive but very interesting was Caruana Firoja. Fabiano, he made a disaster second round in this round robin. He lost, he didn't win a single game. He lost, I think, 4 games or 5 games. And today, I mean, in this game, he also played quite badly. Look at this position. After move 23, he was completely okay with a beautiful knight, probably slightly better for white, very pleasant position. But look, already move 39, just 16 moves later, he's a pawn down, and he's finally lost in 63 moves. So disaster, terrible tournament for Fabiano Caruana, and some kind of sweet end for Alireza Firoja, which probably this tournament will also help him to learn a lot from the many mistakes he made, not only playing but also strategically preparing the tournament, especially in the openings. And also, I mean, all this story about that he played bullet after losing to Nakamura, it's a completely incredible story. So we hope Firoja will grow as a player with this experience. So we have another game which was quite strange, interesting, Rapor Radjabov. They were playing this typical Berlin, and at this point Rapor made a very promising move, g4. He wants to break on g5 and organize an attack there. Black reacted with h6, and here h4 was possible, but he went g5, which is also quite interesting move. The idea is simply to continue with h4, and it's like a Volga gambit, but against the opponent king. So I like it very much, this gambit. This idea seems to be pretty interesting, but strangely enough, in this position, move 20, Rapor decided to sacrifice a full piece. Knight takes g5. This move is really difficult to believe because, well, black took on g5, but he could first take on c4 and then take on g5 and bring the bishop to f6, bishop e7, f6, and I really don't see where is white compensation. I mean, I don't really get it. I mean, if rook g7 we take, and the king escapes, in my opinion, bishop f6, and the king will fly. So I don't really see what was the point after knight g5, bishop c4 take, but okay. In the game, black decided not to take on c4. He went for queen f6, and now white is going to get some compensation. I mean, here it's possible to fight. The most precise move was probably queen h3, trying to get some ideas with rook h5 one day. And if bishop here, queen g2, take, and this was maybe enough to try to make a draw with white. But in the game, rook f5 was played, black got very active, and the last chance was knight e5. Still, what black is better with some ideas like rook e5 and bishop d6. Mate is who is attacking who here. Queen g5, queen h7, black is better. But in the game, it was even worse. Knight d2. This slow idea to bring the knight to f3 and g5 was met with a very powerful move, rook e6. And the rook is coming to help on the third rank, and very soon black will be better. We can see here how the game ended. Black is simply a piece up, and well, if white takes, then we can see this is completely winning for black. In the game, knight f7 came, and black won after a simple move, bishop e6. White resigned. A very strange game from Richard Rapport. Very bad end of tournament for the Hungarian player, who probably also has a lot of things to learn from this event. And we go now for the most important game of the last round, Liren Nakamura. The Chinese player was a half point behind. Draw was enough for Nakamura, and this is what makes this game so difficult to understand. What happened to Nakamura in such an important game? Look, the opening was cleverly played by Naka. This c5, white, in my opinion, if white wants to get any advantage, he has to take. And probably Naka was, I don't know, probably thinking to play this line, which is very safe. It's well known, trading a couple of pieces, this semi-tarrasch. And white is slightly better here. Black usually holds to a draw in this line. But Liren played e3, just trying to avoid all main lines, trying to avoid Naka's preparation. And we go to a symmetrical line which offers very little for white. I mean, in fact, Liren had played this with black. We have, for example, a couple of times. We have, for example, the game Aronian Ding, very fresh from last year. And here he played kind of differently with bishop d3. I think this is maybe a bit more precise than castle, which was played in this Aronian Ding, which was draw. Sorry, no, white won, but black equalized after the opening. In the game, bishop d3 was played by Liren, take, and b4. But we can see this is a pretty symmetrical position. Of course, white is slightly better. He's a tempi up. There was one old game, Christiansen playing with white after bishop d6. White was slightly better, bishop b2. But in the game Naka went bishop e7, I think it's fine. And bishop b7, castle. And in these positions, white typically tries to play knight e4, trying to get some initiative here. After take, it looks like black is a bit uncomfortable in this position. But Naka reaction, I think it's pretty fine. I mean, f5. He's solving all his problems here. Of course, white can take if he wants and have a beautiful knight on e5. But black is going to have also a beautiful bishop. So really, he can even take on bishop d5. So it's completely equal. Liren played bishop b1, and I think he was kind of accepting that this is going to be a draw. Look at this position. This is after move 17. And, well, I mean, what is your evaluation of this position? Sorry. I think, okay, this was completely a draw. I mean, but what happened is very, very strange, because I think at this point Naka started to play for a win. Why? I don't know. I mean, a draw was enough for him to keep second place, clear second, but suddenly I think he started to play for a win, and I will tell you why I think so. Because here, I have the feeling that with closed eyes, I would play bishop f6. This is the most natural move for several reasons. Can you imagine why? First of all, we are going to trade a powerful piece of the opponent, which is hitting our king side. Secondly, but very important, we are going to get the f6 square for our king. I mean, if take, and black king is very happy here, probably black can start already to be better. I understand that maybe he was scared that the knight may one day reach c5, but this is not easy for white to achieve. And in the meantime, black is going to have a better king, which is very important in this kind of endgames. After bishop f6, maybe white could try knight d4, and here black can really make a draw with almost any move. I mean, if you want, you can take, check, and now, okay, I mean, at least who is better and why? I mean, black is not worst here, for sure. He has a wonderful compensation for the rook on the 7th rank. It's probably a draw, but I would rather play with black. Bishop f6 was so natural, the result was for sure a draw. But then Naka was thinking a lot, and usually when you think so much, 20 minutes, for a strategical decision, something may go wrong. He went bishop d6. This move is not bad, but really black cannot pretend to win this game. I mean, he cannot pretend to be better here. And bishop on d6, it's only covering the square on. Of course, I mean, there was this threat, rook c6, knight e5 check, and then, okay, he's protecting against that threat, but now white gets all his pieces into play, and it's true, the position is still completely equal, but, okay, white got some opportunities on the c file. Maybe Naka wanted to leave white with a bad bishop. But how bad is this bishop? I mean, it's not so bad. I mean, it's playing on the long diagonal, and it can land on d4. So really, this about good and bad bishops, we have to be very careful. It's not only about the pawn structure. I mean, it's also about the where is this piece placed and what this piece is doing. In this case, now black played rook d7. And it's white who is now slightly better, playing knight b3, and he wants to maybe enter on c6, maybe to play bishop d4, to get the square on c5. So, okay, it's equal, but now Naka, he understands that he maybe better trade this bishop. And look his move, bishop e7. He's attacking the pawn, and one of the ideas is to play bishop f6. Here it's we reach a moment, move 25, with a very committal decision from Liren. I don't like his move, h5. I don't like it because this pawn is going to be a weakness. This knight can grab it one day through f6, and of course now Naka wants to trade bishops because then the knight may go to f6 and grab the pawn on h5. I think it was much wiser to play g3. And, well, maybe white is still slightly better. I mean, if bishop f6, then white is going to be the square on c5. He can maybe take and enter on c6. And some knight d5, knight c5, knight d4, knight c5 is coming. I think white is better here. g3 was a simple move. White slightly better. But h5 was played in the game, and now Naka plays bishop f6. And here he was, again, thinking for a long time, and he went e5. It's probably correct, because now if take e6 is a bit weak, black is not really in time to play so comfortable the attack on h5, because rook c6, and this is really weak. I mean, rook e7. White can simply increase the pressure with some moves like rook b6 and rook c6, and I don't really see how can black pretend to be better here. So e5 was a good move, and suddenly the position becomes unclear. Both sides have good points. h5 is weak, but at the same time, white is more active. The rook on a8 is a bit passive. The bishop on d8 is a bit strangely placed. And here again, we reach a position which is probably good for a draw. I mean, rook d1, knight f6. And now one of the most strange moments in this game, and in fact in the whole tournament, white is going to lose his pawn on h5. So Liren, he found the only counterattack idea, bishop d6. Now he attacks the pawn on e4, e5, and if black plays e4, then white has the opportunity to jump to d4, and f5 is going to fall. So it's not a good idea to play e4. Naka, he understood this. He played knight g4, and white needs to do something very fast because bishop g5 and rook d8 is coming. So he went bishop c5, trying to enter rook d7, and this is kind of offering a draw because now black could come back with knight f6, and really I don't see anything better for white than to repeat moves bishop d6, and this could give Naka a clear second place. But for some reason he played now bishop h4. He attacks, and I think maybe he was expecting something like g3 rook d8, and he had some hopes here to finally grab this pawn on h5 once the rooks disappear. Take, and knight f6 is coming, and maybe white can be in a little trouble here. I'm not sure if this is going to be enough to win for black, but black is pressing. But maybe, as I said, maybe he was surprised by the move rook d7 check, intermediate move. Now, of course, black can attack the rook and the pawn on f2 is going to fall, but how to do it? Because king e6 is not really working because rook d6 check, and the king e8, it's going to allow to take on g7, which is more important than f2. Now rook g8 is a threat, and there is no time for black to get active here. So rook d7 check, now black has to go king g8, and g3 came. And here black had still the opportunity to play rook d8. This was the most natural move, because if white goes rook a7 trying to win a pawn, black can play bishop g5 after rook a6. The rook is coming, and there is a good counterplay attacking the knight, and then later f4. Black is attacking with all his pieces, and I have the feeling that the compensation is pretty good here. In fact, if knight a5, black can even start taking on a3 and later playing f4, maybe on knight f6 one day, or even e4, knight e5, who knows. So this was probably all right, rook d8, take, draw. But instead he went bishop g5, which is a bit dubious. King f1, of course knight f6 is not so good because rook e7, and if knight h5 then rook e5, and again if e4 then knight d4, again in this case maybe rook e5 is even stronger. So Naka started to think a lot, and again he played probably his worst move in all game, bishop d8. This is a terrible move, difficult to explain. Of course rook d8 was still possible, and probably the game would end in a draw after rook d8, bishop d8. But after bishop d8, now he's going to be worst. Look at his rook. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, all this is just to play knight f6 and to grab this pawn on h5. All these moves from black. But of course, white has always bishop attacking on e5, bishop d6, and knight d4. So it doesn't work for black. And now he's going to be left with the passive pieces and a kind of lost position. He tried to complicate things with f4. In fact, here he started to play fast. But okay, I mean, even if white played e4, which is very good, but even if e4, I mean, what is black doing here? I mean, this could be also very much winning for white. Knight coming to e6, bishop coming to d4. Look at the white rook, look at the black rook. This is clearly completely wrong for black. And after e4, white, okay, one few moves later, he just pick up a pawn up, move 49, and just on move 53, black resigned in a completely hopeless position. After bishop e3, rook a2 is coming. For example, knight e6, rook a2, bishop c1, and it's the end of the game. In fact, it was lost already several moves ago, since black played bishop d8, this awful move. Okay, this was a pity for Nakamura, who finally ended on the third position, leading, got the second place, clear second, recovering very well from his defeat on the first round against Nepo. Congratulations to young Nepomniachtchi, he will be the candidate. We will see now what will happen next. Will Carlsen defend his crown? Will he refuse? And we may have a match between Liren and Nepo. Very soon we will know. The match is scheduled for next year, but very soon I'm sure FIDE will make some announcement. I hope you enjoyed all these recaps. Thanks to my colleague Guillermo Linsky, to all ICC team, and I hope to see you soon again in the next big tournament. Bye bye.